The Kenyan electorate now responds to only the following stimuli. Tribe, money, comedians or comedy on the stage, and vulgar language and false promises. When a country is in such a state, a country ought to examine whether she is moving in the right direction or she's not. We are a country that now, to use this metaphor, we are looking for fish by climbing trees. We are looking for oranges by diving into the ocean. We'll never succeed if we continue on this trajectory.
Seems like we're well on the road towards development and into a new world order. I'd love to get your interpretation of what this all means at the moment. Where would you see Kenya is? Are people being too pessimistic, or are we not giving, a chance to those who might want to do something with it?
The country, in a single word, is on tenterhooks. The country, in my view, is headed in the wrong direction. And anybody who says something to the contrary is deluding himself or herself. Look at the fundamentals. All the critical areas that people talk about in the life of a nation. Education, you've identified. Many years ago, we said within East Africa that we would harmonize the education system within East Africa. Nobody now understands our education system. The Ugandans don't, the Tanzanians don't, the Rwandese don't, the Burundians don't. We also don't. And if you listen to the individuals who run the Ministry of Education, you get to understand that we are in a state of confusion. And when you drive across the country, particularly in the urban areas, and the emergence of foreign curricula, which are very popular with the middle class, it tells you that people have no faith in the education system. If you talk to any one of our parliamentarians, or most of them, their children are not going through our education system. They have no faith in the education system that they are talking about. The time is now that we must ask ourselves what is wrong. Look at agriculture. We are importing sugar. We are importing rice. We are importing eggs. We are importing things that we can produce. We are importing fish. Then you tell me that we are in the right direction. Look at the level of security across the country. If there is a single growth industry in this country, are private security firms. The middle class in Kenya have resorted to what a friend of mine, Barack Muluka, calls finding private solutions for public problems. If the roads are bad, you come together and have Cabro roads. If you don't have security, you hire security guards. If you can't fix the schools, you go to British or American systems. Security is bad. What we are doing is that we have politicians who are pork barreling. They are moving across the country using our taxpayers to win votes. That is why in the 21st century you see people moving around in helicopters distributing bursary funds, which is our money. Every elected official runs some kind of bursary, whether it's the MP or the women's representative of the MCA. We are in a state of confusion. You see programs such as the Hustler. What became of the Hustler Fund? The World Bank project, which is called Nyota. Why should anybody be running around the country distributing it? Who tells our politicians that everybody is a businessman or businesswoman whom if you give 50,000, then they engage into some business? It is classical pork barreling going into the electorate, using their very money to win their votes. Politicians come with solutions, scatterbrain solutions about how school fees is to be paid. I'm told they are now moving into communities to find out children who have not transitioned. Is that how you run education in the 21st century? When you say that you want to be a first world country, institutions are dead or dying. We have one of the most expensive ways of hiring public officials. When you want to hire an official in central government or in the county, you appoint a panel to hire that person and you pay them allowances. We are in a bad state, and the sooner we admit it, the safer we are, because then we will be looking for solutions to solve these problems. I drive around this country. I drive in neighborhoods in Nairobi. Even matters as mundane as fixing things like roundabouts. For the last 15 years, roundabouts in Nairobi have never been fixed. For the last 15 years, then you tell me we are going to be a first world. Traffic lights have not been fixed, then you tell me we are going to be a first world. Garbage is collected using lorries, which are themselves garbage. And you tell me we are going into the first world. The Auditor General and the Controller General tell us that money is being stolen in the billions. And we are now so numb that even when we talk about theft, nobody cares about it. The rhetoric is tribe. A leading politician and leading politicians telling fellow Kenyans that you cannot go to schools in our areas, and yet we are one Kenya. And you tell me we are moving in the right direction. The nation can be rescued. But it will only be rescued if we make a solemn vow as a people. And unfortunately, permit me to say, that with the current crop of politicians, 90% of them, this country will never realize our potential. I've been around for long enough to know. I've seen them moving from one political party to, well, not party, there are no political parties in Kenya. Moving from one political formation to the other, every election cycle. And the electorate has also been confused. The Kenyan electorate now responds to only the following stimuli. Tribe, money, comedians or comedy on the stage, and vulgar language and false promises. When a country is in such a state, a country ought to examine whether she is moving in the right direction or she's not. We are a country that now, to use this metaphor, we are looking for fish by climbing trees. We are looking for oranges by diving into the ocean. We'll never succeed if we continue on this trajectory. Can we? Yes, we can. There are good Kenyans who on a daily basis try to do the right thing. But who cares about them? We are a country that now canonizes thieves and vilifies our saints. We must change. The voices of reason cannot be heard even in their purest tones. And even when they are heard, they are poo-pooed. In our places of worship, the situation is the same.
Not any better.
We respond to money.
Prof,
Sad.
today we live in a country where it has been said, it is an actual fact, that we collect a lot of resources from Mwananchi than ever seen before, based off the tax regime that we have today. That during the last State of the Nation address by the president said the economy is doing better, that Kenya is headed in the right direction. But Prof, Mwananchi, if you ask Mwananchi today how they are, they will tell you, I am poorer today than when government was formed. And you couple that together with the Auditor General's report on pilferage of resources in the country. You couple that up with money stolen from healthcare system, from education. And one asks the question, Prof, who bewitched us? Who bewitched the leadership of the country that they would not look at Mwananchi as a person who deserves services, who works very hard, who painfully pays for taxes, but never ever enjoys the results of their hard work?
You know, my brother, I saw an advert inviting qualified individuals to apply for various offices. One of them was a statistician. The starting salary was advertised at 70,000 and the maximum will be 110 or thereabouts. Compare that with the salary of an MCA, an MP, who in addition to the salary is paid a sitting allowance for every sitting, who half of the time is away on benchmarking tours in the farthest place so that they can earn the highest allowance. Then you know that we are a sick nation. When politics becomes an industry in this country, if you want to be rich, join politics or be in the senior civil service. That is why within 1 year, what it would take 1,000 years for somebody to acquire, a Kenyan politician acquires within 1 year. When you are in such a state, then you are in a sad state, and the people have been rendered helpless. The people are now praying and fasting in the hope that that will solve their problems. I'm an employer, and I look at the pay slips of those whom I employ, the taxes that we have to deduct. And if you don't deduct and remit, the Kenya Revenue Authority will assess you at astronomical rates which you have never earned in order to coerce you into paying tax. They do that for some people. The politicians don't care. What they do is run around the country in helicopters, distributing 200 shillings, insulting the population, telling the population will pay school fees for you. You humiliate the people. And I'm suggesting to you and to all of us that until the day that we introduce sanity and what I've called before hygiene in our politics, one of the things that we must do in this country is to rationalize the emoluments that people get when they get into public office. I now hold the view that political officers should be part-time. You know, when I hear people saying that we are going into the first world, I laugh because it is impossible. Look at our system of government. We are not a federation, but we run like a federation with 47 counties. Each governor thinks that they are running a government. Each governor complete with a motorcade. The central government is mirrored in the counties, and I can tell you that many of those counties are technically insolvent. And if you look at them, they look to Nairobi to give them funds which they misuse. We must reduce the counties to what we said when we were making the constitution, to no more than 14. We must change the manner in which we appoint public officials. We must change governance. Look at universities. Over 60% of Kenyan universities are technically insolvent, which means that there is no research that is going on in those spaces. And then you are preparing young men and women to go into universities where there is no research to earn certificates. Do our Kenyan politicians care? No, they don't. That is why at funerals, at weddings, and today even from church pulpits, they pontificate at us. They think we are fools and dunderheads. They insult us with the president calling a section of his electorate Wapumbavu. The president of the Republic of Kenya said that on national television. Never have I heard the president of any country call calling a section of his electorate retards. Wapumbavu is different from wajinga. Mpumbavu ni mtu mwenye akili pungwani. Rais ametuita sisi ni akili pungwani. Amesema hivyo. That is where we are.
And PLO, even as we look at that situation, and for all intents and purposes, things are going in an interesting and negative, retrogressive direction. And if we look at situations around the world in history that have been going in a similar stance, the only thing that changed that position was a complete revolution.
You know, we don't talk about it. Perhaps we fear to talk about it because we think it is too painful.
Too bloody.
Too painful.
Yeah.
And even to mention it, perhaps treasonable in the minds of others. That is perhaps why people don't talk about it. But look at the fundamentals. Look at, I was in my rural home and I drove across most western Kenya in the last 3 weeks. And you can see the people have no money. You can see little boys running in the evening to the market to buy a single packet of unga. I go where I lived once in the eastern part of Nairobi almost every other week. And I can see that in order to survive, they now have to buy water. There is no water in the pipes. I can see some of them selling no more than 10 bananas. Where I lived, people long migrated from the houses. They have built vibandas or shacks. People have no money in their pockets. That is why when a politician comes and lines them up to humiliate them,
They take.
by giving them 200 shillings, they say, Hewala. And there is a saying in Twi, which saying is that when you run after a coward for too long, you meet his or her courage. There is wisdom in that saying.
Indeed.
The Kenyan politician, and by extension the African politician, has treated the Kenyan peoples and African peoples as dunderheads for too long. Chinua Achebe talked about it in Anthills of the Savannah. And people are getting tired. People are getting tired. They got tired in Bangladesh. They got tired in Sri Lanka. They got tired in Burkina Faso. They are getting tired even here.
Are Kenyans getting tired to that point where they are saying that we need this change now, that they're ready to say no to the handouts despite how difficult the situation is? Because for a very long time, Kenyans who call out at the leadership of the country have been labeled, including the media, have been labeled to be so negative whenever we call out at the leadership of the country for things not going right.
But how can you, even if you are labeled, if there is a funeral, do you say there is a wedding?
No.
You say there is a funeral, however morbid it is.
It's a funeral.
And one of the things that worries me is that holding all factors in the short to medium term, the elections will never change this country. Those who think that there'll be an election in 2027 and then there will be a new dispensation in Kenya are deluding themselves. Look at both sides of the political divide. It is the same individuals who have been here with us, some from 1988. I've seen them, I know them, you know them. There is nothing new. Right now, if you are a Kenyan or a foreigner, you came into Kenya and watch television or read the newspapers or listen to the radios, you'd think that we have an election next week.
True.
The net effect is that if I'm an investor now, I'll postpone my investment decisions until the year 2028 at the very earliest, or the year 2029. As I speak to you now, governmental institutions are not paying pending bills. I'm told pending bills are in the neighborhood of 177 billion and increasing, which means that there is no money that is getting into the hands of business people. There is no money that is getting into the hands of professionals who have performed their work and done their work as is expected of them. The only people who now appear to have money are the political class. And I think it is deliberate. Because when you have money, then you can control the voting majority. What do I foresee, for example, in the year 2027? There are going to be ethnic alliances. The voter turnout is going to be no more than 50% or slightly better. There is voter apathy because people are now taking the view it doesn't matter whether I vote.
Yes.
And we have had politicians saying, even if we lose the election,
We'll fill things.
we'll fill and we will win it by hook or by crook. This is how arrogant the Kenyan politician has become. So that voting is becoming something that is not useful. People have lost faith in the ballot and are losing faith in the ballot. When you find yourself in such a situation, then it becomes very, very dangerous for the long-term health of a nation. You know, recently I saw a young man saying, and he's a young man who I'm told had scored A in his examination. He says, I want to be a traffic police officer. Because that will guarantee that I become a millionaire within a short time.
Oh, wow.
Look at the level at which our young men and women are betting. We want wealth without work. Because it has been demonstrated, particularly by the political class and senior civil service, that those are the avenues via which you get money, reaping where you have not sown. Look at the manner in which my good friends, the Auditor General and the Controller General, are ignored, and in certain cases, even prosecution is attempted against them as a way of intimidation. Look at the situation when people are summoned by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. It is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption that is insulted and abused. And when people come out of Integrity House, they are celebrated as heroes.
That you made it out. So, in all of this, we see what the symptoms are. And we have to then ask what the problem is, because that's what doctors often do. And they talk about, when you think about a cancer, PLO, you think some of the words that come to mind are free radicals. They're all over the place. But the first thing that a doctor does when they find a cancer is not treat it, they cut it out. Cut it out, and then you treat the rest of the body to then be able to recover from the damage or the danger that cancer has. Never do you find a situation whereby the doctor will say, well, let's see how this cancer is going to do if we add a painkiller here or there. They want to cut it out first, but they have to look for what's causing that problem. What's causing the problem right now from what you see?
You know, we have a cancer, but we choose to take Panadol to cure, in the hope that it will cure that cancer. What is our problem? Our problem is that we have made money and wealth our God. A friend of mine, Njoki Kaigai, calls it affluenza. From the word affluent. There is a competition by individuals in public spaces to be richer than the other. So that we have normalized graft, number one. Our second problem is what I'll use the English word mendacity. Lying has become our stock in trade. The more you lie, and the sleek way in which you lie and lie to the electorate, that makes you the politician. He's a smart politician. She's a smart politician. Number 3, we have lost sense of shame. Atuna haya. Even when we do all these things, we are unashamed. There is no shame anymore. Number 4, we have institutionalized ethnicity of the negative kind as the way of mobilization. The 5th thing is that the politician has discovered that the best way to hold the populace in check is to impoverish the population. We are one of the most taxed nations in this continent today, without commensurate service. All those factors conjoined have created a toxic environment which makes it very easy for the political class to control the majority of the populace. The middle class is absent in this arena because the middle class is so busy trying to educate their children outside of the Kenyan education system. They are so busy trying to finance their mortgages. They are so busy trying to protect themselves through private security, and they think that they can have private solutions to public problems. The middle class is absent, and what they do is to analyze the Kenyan situation in the cool of their room and at private members' clubs. The political class, on the other hand, know all these, and what they are doing is to create and to ensure that we are in this state of confusion, and they sell us fiction. In Kiswahili, we used to have a book called Hekaya za Abunuwasi. And there are these stories of Abunuwasi. Abunuwasi was famous for his ways. He would give you a cooking pan, and then after 2 days he asks it, and then he gives you 2, and it says it has given birth. And when you lend him the next time, it says it has died, because that which gives birth dies. That is what the politicians have perfected. The net effect is that we now have politicians in this country who think they are larger than life, almost as large as death. They are immune from the law. They operate above or outside of the law. They commit offenses and nobody cares. They can do what they want. They can kill and maim, but nothing happens to them. When you arrest them, they go to their tribe, and their tribesmen are capable of saying, he is a murderer or a thief, but he is our friend. When you create such a nation, then the nation suffers. Permit me to say that there are very few Kenyans, people who can genuinely say that what bothers me is Kenya. We have all retreated into our ethnic cocoons. That is why you hear the talk, usiguze mlima, usiguze mtaro. That is why you hear the Luo saying Oduadu. That is why you hear the Luo say Murembe. That is why you hear the Kisi saying our very own. That is why the people in the coast are also talking of their very own. That is why you hear the Somali brothers are talking about their very own. Everybody has retreated, at least the political class, into these ethnic cocoons. Kenya is a very lonely country.
Professor, then there is what we call the Constitution of the Republic, the supreme law of the land. And you look at how the law is abused in the country, and one asks the question, where did we go wrong? Because you look at court orders being given, which is law at that point, disrespected. You look at decisions being made even in terms of expenditure. When we take debt, it ought to go to the consolidated fund. That is not disrespected. It is the rule of the land. The law in the country seems as if it is a suggestion to a specific group of individuals in the country with whom Kenyans have donated their power for representation, legislative and oversight. Professor, can we say that even now, as you're saying, we're going to Singapore, can we head there? Can we even move a step forward as a country without respecting the rule of law?
You know, I know that the word Singapore is being used as a metaphor, but let me be mischievous a little. We are the only country in the world that wants to be another country. Never. have I had another one country wanting to be another country. I understand the metaphor. Singapore is 737 square kilometers, or thereabout, a population about 6 million. Nairobi is about 696 square kilometers, which means Singapore is slightly bigger, just slightly bigger than Nairobi. We, as a country of 582 square kilometers with a population approaching 61, to be like Nairobi. And even if you allow me now to go into the metaphor without being mischievous, tongue-in-cheek, Singapore had certain things that defined what they wanted. Discipline. Discipline is half the journey. Respect for rule of law. When Lee Kuan Yew and his comrades in arms broke away from Malaysia at that time, 142 individuals or thereabouts were arrested for engaging in corruption and punished.
Yes.
There was no impunity. People were hired on merit, not on the basis of ethnicity. So if you look at the direction that we are going into, then you discover that we are going in a totally opposite direction. I don't know whether you've had the opportunity of reading this book written in the year 2015 by Robert Wood, a Ghanaian, talking about third world to first world, one touch. When you want to get into that direction, it is not the rhetoric that gets you into that direction. It is the action. And where is the action? There is no action. When you have a World Bank, or look at the sale, for example, Safaricom, it is something that one can say many things about. But when I hear that those who are going to offer advisory services for the sale of Safaricom are going to be paid 3 billion Kenya shillings, what are they doing? You don't get into Singapore by doing the opposite things. There is a saying that you may want to, when you want to shake a baobab tree, the only thing that will end up shaking are your buttocks. And I'm suggesting to Kenyans that what we are doing, or what the political class is doing, is not in tandem with what you do when you want to move economically in the right direction. By next year, I am of the view, and I claim no expertise, we'll be spending no less than 60% of our GDP, if not our budget, servicing foreign debt. When you are doing that, how are you going to get into the space? When you are allowing people to import sugar, which they are repackaging, and you are not paying the farmers. When you are allowing people to import rice under the guise of distribution to people who are going through famine, and we know that this is being imported for purposes of enriching a few individuals. We know people are importing edible oil. You are doing all the wrong things, and then you tell me we are moving in the right direction. No, we are not. Can we? Kenya has the potential to improve our economy. We are slightly about 150, 160 GDP or thereabout, depending on how you count it. We could be a $500 billion GDP in the next 10 years if we get certain fundamentals right. Get our tourism right. Get our agriculture right. Get our value addition right. Get our manufacturing right. Reduce corruption and wastage. Rationalize our governance and make sure that we invest in areas that will create productivity. Get into areas that will change the lives of the people. But we are doing exactly the opposite. And let me give you two examples. The thing that was touted by the government as capable of changing people's lives. I want us to go out and audit the actual impact of the money distributed under the Hustler Fund. Check. Right now, after 2 years, I want you to go and ask yourself the impact of the money that is being distributed under Nyota, and you'll find that the failure rate is anything between 70 and 80%. Why? You are making assumptions which don't exist. That if you are given 50,000, you are going to engage in some business, and that business is going to bloom and blossom. It doesn't work that way. You have trainers whom you are paying I'm told they are being paid in the hundreds of millions. Are you involving universities? Departments of commerce?
even?
Are you all in my rural village? Almost half of the TVETs are closed because they can't pay the teachers.
True.
And that is true across the country. So in a nutshell, you see a country, and let me tell you how painful it is to some of us who love this country, that you know what is right, but you can do very little about it. I know people who would love to serve as parliamentarians, but they cannot, because the electorate has been primed to respond to only the stimuli that I talked about. They don't want to surrender themselves to that reality. So we find ourselves in this space. And even as we talk here, when the politicians listen to individuals such as that, they say, how ni wachache wasiotosheka. They poo-poo what we are saying. They say, these are theoreticians whose only claim to fame is that they are professional fault finders. No, we are not. We are patriots who love this country, who worry about generations yet to be born, who worry about young men and women. And I talk to young men and women across this continent and across this country. I've met young engineers on border writers 4 years after they graduated. I've met engineers and other professionals. Not that there is anything wrong with being a waiter in a hotel, but having been waiters for 4 years after graduation. When you are in such a situation, then something is fundamentally wrong. And our politicians are proud every weekend when they go to their rural homes and they entertain thousands and they post themselves on media showing how they were feeding the thousands, who then leave with their bellies full for the day, but with their future empty.
There has been the thought that the reason why Kenyans, or I mean, again, we use this to then extrapolate across the African continent. Uganda just went to an election where miraculously the internet has come back on after the announcement of the presidential results, and went off again just before that election went into play. And things like those are what we look at. But there is a thought that people are not educated to the point of knowledge. There's education, but to the point of knowledge and understanding as to what should actually be happening. That if I was able to look at a road, for example, and understand, make the connection that between the money that should come for that road and what it can actually do for me and my community, that if I understand that the person who has taken it is actually committing an offense, that if I understand that this is what an individual is supposed to do, that I can understand this is where we are, but this is where we ought to be, that there would be then a stirring in my spirit as an individual for me to do something about it beyond lament, beyond just vote, but understand. And I guess that's where the saying came from, that there is not more dangerous people than those who have knowledge and that they want to do something with it. And so it seems as though those who are in those positions don't want people to actually know.
Absolutely.
That's why we keep you wrapped up with giving you 50,000 shillings. We'll give you 6,000 shillings to 90,000 of you, because you're more dangerous to me in that position if you know actually that what I'm doing is wrong.
It was said that the safety of the rulers, I'm paraphrasing Karl Marx because I'm not a Marxist, that the safety of the rulers demands that the common people be kept in the most profound ignorance. And that is what they feed on. Because once the critical of the masses are kept in that state, then they can manipulate and do whatever it is that they want. But let me come back to Kenya, how insensitive political leaders have become. I'm I consider myself to be a very engaged citizen. There is not many things that happen in parliament that I don't do a memorandum. And I'm an engaged African, and I'll give you examples. In the last 4 months, I have written to different countries I'm not a citizen of those countries. I've written to Rwanda complaining about something. To their credit, I've written to Uganda, I've written to Botswana, I've written to Namibia, I've written to Mozambique. All those countries responded to my letters. All. I've sent memoranda to the Kenyan Parliament, BBI, NADCO, recently about the oil blocks in Turkana. I've written to NTSA, not a response. You see the difference? My own country dismisses. We now have something called, for example, the 10-point agenda, and we are told that that is what is going to change our country. If you look at the 10-point agenda, it is not going to change our country. There are sweeteners that appear to be meant to change our country. But what the political class wants is to create offices, so that you have the office of a president, vice president, prime minister, and all these offices, so that when you are creating a tribal alliance, you are able to say to the tribal kingpins, you are going to be this, you are going to be this, and then they imagine that the people will say, one of our own is a minister, one of our own is a prime minister, one of our own is this. It speaks to the question you posed, that is what we have succeeded in doing in the continent of Africa, to keep people in a state of subjugation by manipulation. What about the middle class? How are they manipulated? They are the ones who are engaged in business. They are the ones who are engaged in supplies. So if you are supplying or doing roads that you gave as an example, and you are doing roads in the hundreds of millions, do you want to disturb the person who gave you the contract?
The apple cart?
And if in giving the road, they also, I know a friend of mine who is a contractor, they give you a road notionally say for 1 billion, and they want 300 in return, will the quality of the road be the same as it ought to have been when you applied the total of the money? No. And I want you to look at the lifestyle of the politician and the lifestyle of senior civil servants in the road sector, in all these sectors, and look at their lifestyles. It is not commensurate with their known and legitimate income. That is why your contractor cannot be punished, because he gave money to these individuals. And unfortunately, you and me pay for it. Unfortunately.
So, Prof, what is the responsibility of Mwananchi? Because at the end of the day, it is Mwananchi who goes out there and casts that vote, which then goes to speak in terms of Mwananchi has to be keen, has to know the person they're putting out there and must put them in check. Does Mwananchi has responsibility from their end in terms of who they elect?
My brother, I'm now asking myself, is voting the way that we should, voting the way it is? Is it the way that we should continue to use to elect the so-called leaders? We can predict what will happen. In the next few months, you'll hear the IEBC saying the billions that they need to run the elections. They'll possibly print the ballot papers in Greece or in Germany. They'll import Kim's kits, which on the election day predictably are going to fail. The question is voting part of the problem? And I've said this before, and I'm saying it. An American called John Henry Clark said, and I'm repeating it, that when African countries regained their independence, they inherited governance system from the former colonizers, which system they continue to apply, and no country, no African country will ever succeed on the basis of those systems. I think he was right. Because voting now doesn't guarantee that the person with the highest votes will win. It's the person who is announced as the winner who will win. Look at the by-election that were held in Kenya recently. Look at the amounts of money that were deployed. Look at the voter turnout, less than 50%. Look at the noise that accompanied it. Are the constituencies the better because they have a new MP? What the MP will do is to receive or to preside over CDF, and half of it will possibly disappear in many of the constituencies through contracts and other avenues. The elector, the voter, in a properly working system can change things. But the systems in Kenya and in Africa, the systems themselves are rigged. They are rigged so that your vote doesn't count for much. Those who wield power will manipulate the vote and will manipulate the systems so that the person who they require at the end is the person that they get at the end of the process.
And so we have to ask this question. Sometimes it's difficult to hear the question, but we can see examples of where it works. That is it time that nations of this continent, Kenya, the one that we're speaking about this morning, then have an agreement or have the leadership of a benevolent or even a more serious dictator. Look at Burkina Faso. The systems that you speak of, in a very short time, have then been able to reveal themselves that they work if they are done properly. That in a very short period of time, things have unfurled in a manner that one would have never imagined could happen and happen so quickly. Before they took him out, and yes, I say took him out, Muammar Gaddafi ran a country that is akin to any country in Europe. And I was able to do that because he said, you know what, this is the way we ought to do it. Let me do it. If it doesn't work, let's go another direction. Many would argue that Paul Kagame is a benevolent dictator and that things happen because they're insisted upon. Is it time?
Let me say this. I've heard that argument being bandied around. I do not support it.
Okay.
In 1992 in Benin, the then president, I think it was Soglo, they had a meeting of all Beninois saying, how do we govern ourselves? And I believe the time has come in Kenya where we must ask ourselves, can we go on this way? And I remember in 2001 when we were doing the constitution, Ali Mazrui wrote a paper and say, if Kenyan politics is ethnic prone, can we have a constitutional order that is ethnic proof? And he debated many issues about how we can deal with the specter of ethnicity in a positive manner. You've heard, for example, amongst the Luo of Kenya as we speak, the two cabinet ministers who are appointed are saying the Luos are now in government because they are appointed cabinet ministers. That is the kind of reasoning that prevails. And the question is, this feel-good effect, what impact does it have on governance? What does it matter to me? And I've given this analogy. When you are taking an aircraft, you look for the best pilot. You don't ask whether he's from your tribe or he's from your village. But when we want our country to be piloted, we then want one from our village. Then you expect the aircraft to fly properly, and the person from your village has no idea what it is. The question is, I have no immediate answer, but I believe that you need order. A leadership that is merit-based. We can borrow from different systems. The Chinese have claimed they have a democracy that has a Chinese character. A friend of mine calls it Afrocracy, that the time has come that we must borrow from even traditional governance systems and ask ourselves, this election that we go through and cost us millions and pain every other circle, are they helping? And in the recent past, we have seen the elections in Tanzania. The country has not even settled. The elections in Uganda. As I speak to you this morning, the Ugandan schools have been ordered not to open. And in Kenya, we can predict that in the year 2027, the current administration will shut out social media in August. They'll shut it out so that we don't communicate. And so it is predictable that after every election cycle, and you can see what I call dog whistling. When you listen to certain politicians in different parts of the country, they're already dog whistling.
Sure.
They are telling people in very subtle terms,
what will happen?
if this is not your home, you had better go to your home. And they are talking about Kenya. And this is going to happen a lot more as we head towards the election. So I agree with you that the time is now to interrogate these systems. And perhaps the time is now that we must re-examine. I have no doubt that we need to have a look at our 2010 constitution. And when we have a look at our 2010 constitution, these are some of the things that I think should happen. I think my good friend Ekuru Aukot in his Punguza Mzigo talked about it. Number one, we must look at the architecture of the executive arm of government. Number two, we must, in the nature of things, rethink devolution, reduce the governance units from at the very maximum 14. Number two, look at the manner in which we appoint public officials. It's too expensive and unwieldy. In the legislature, it is time to consider having a system where legislators are part-time, because as it is now, they are part-time. The lawyers who are legislators still see them in court. So they are part-time. They are not full-time, but they are paid as full-time and all these things. Look at our judiciary and see how we can deal with it. And when we do all those things honestly, we will be able to discover that we have a governance system that is top-heavy. And once we do that, because we have chosen that ethnicity is one of the prime movers in this country, let us ask ourselves what the Nigerians call the federal character. Let us ask ourselves how we are going to deal with those things. And let us give pride of place to merit. There is no substitute for merit. There is no substitute for discipline. There is no substitute for humility. There is no substitute for patriotism. There is no substitute for self-shame. There is no substitute for doing the right thing. If we do that, and we stop what we are doing right now. I've talked about pork barreling. Every politician now on a daily basis is pork barreling, using public funds by seeking public glorification in order to hoodwink the voter and to attract the votes. And the result will be the same again after August 2027. As I've said before, the forests will change. But the monkeys and their habits, speaking metaphorically, will be the very same.